That is a look at the White House right now, and that is where the president is after he met, of course, with our youngest Marine yesterday. Right. But the president's going to have a full slate as he doesn't have anything formal on the agenda today. But we do know this. He's back out, and he's got a domestic agenda to move forward after what many say was a home run overseas.
Absolutely. He spent more than a week over there, had a great visit with so many world leaders, then was there at the memorial service yesterday honoring our troops. We're going to bring in Laura Ingraham, who is the founder and editor-in-chief of LifeZette and also a Fox News contributor. Good morning to you, Laura.
Good morning, Laura.
Hey, guys. It's always a better Tuesday with friends.
All right,
I like it. I like it.
Sure. So we do have some news coming out of the White House right away. Mike Dupke is out as communications director, and he was basically the newest hire on a department that needs a lot more. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I have to say it's not that all that surprising. In the first 6 months of an administration, you see a shakeout. There is a shakeout. It's like a baseball team. You put someone in as shortstop, turns out he might be better at third, might be better to send down to the minor leagues, might be better off the team. None of this surprises me. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think they're learning about how they need to hone their communication skills, marry policies with events. So, like, for instance, last week, I guess, we learned that 30,000 criminal aliens, including MS-13 members, had been deported from the country since Trump took over. That's great news. You know, I'd like to see Trump go to Manassas, Virginia, and sit with a family for 15 minutes that has had to deal with the MS-13 violence and go visit a police station and say, guys, thank you for everything you're doing. That's the kind of work I think they're going to start doing at the White House. They've already, you saw it in the foreign trip. It worked fabulously. And I don't think it's a big deal. These kind of shakeouts are routine, frankly. And in high, this is like high intensity, the high impact, 4 or 5 months here.
Yeah, we've heard, Laura, they want to take it on the road, take the show on the road. He believes he has a lot of power when he's with the people, bringing those kind of messages straight to them. We're also hearing possibilities of a war room to take on all of these Russia things, more of a separation.
It's happening. Yeah.
It's happening. A separation between the comms department, which can think long term, and the press secretary, which is sort of in the day-to-day knife fighting. Do you think they're getting it right? Do you think they're on the precipice of being where they need to be to drive the proactive message you're talking about?
I think they're getting closer. I think all the dumping on Sean Spicer has been absurd and ridiculous and overblown. Look, the media are going to salivate every time the word Russia is mentioned. I know we're going to get into that. But what they did last week in that foreign trip, and what we saw the extension of Trump in such a positive, patriotic, and hopeful yet determined manner yesterday at Arlington, that is what we want to see from our president. These investigations should go forward. I hope they're going to be expeditiously handled. But they need to stay on message. And from my sense and my sources inside the White House, that is what they're in the process of doing. It's not going to happen overnight. Nothing does.
Yeah,
but that's all right.
We played a soundbite earlier of someone from Ohio. She's a political commentator from Ohio. She was on another network over the weekend. And
actually, she's a Democratic congresswoman.
Democratic congresswoman, okay. And she was saying the people in Ohio, she's a Democrat, Laura, people in Ohio do not care about this Russia stuff. They care about jobs.
I was in Las Vegas last week, the week before in Houston, in Dallas, and then in Florida. I do a lot of appearances across the country. And the number one thing that people come up and say to me is, when is Congress going to get itself in gear and push through the Trump agenda? And I think that's where the pressure needs to be put now. The White House has done unbelievable work already without the help of Congress. But now the pressure needs to go to Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, to get off their derrieres and get this agenda pushed through. That's what's going to drive this economic renewal, and that's going to make all these investigations, I think, in eventuality, look like, they're frankly quite irrelevant, because this economy is going to get going, and that's going to be the best thing for the country and for the president.
What do you think about Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator John McCain? They're constantly commenting against this president and not getting on board with the GOP.
Well, they weren't for Trump, and they're still not for Trump. Trump has a lot of barricades to jump over. He has the press. He has the Democrat establishment. He has Barack Obama, Valerie Jarrett, and that whole war room that's still operating. And he has the never-Trumpers in the Republican caucus.
I would have to say that I got to separate McCain and Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham wants to bat for him.
Lindsey's been good.
He's been really good. Listen, he wants to stay in the Paris Agreement. That's an honest disagreement. You should do that if that's your not feel. But he has actually seized the problem with the Comey memo story. He saw the folly. He saw the folly in the Jared Kushner story, and I think he's been calling as he sees it. For John McCain, I think I think he's also being true to his school.
Yeah.
But let's see what happens, because I think his wife could be working for the administration shortly. All right, let's talk about this. NATO, the visit. After he leaves, the president feels positive about it, and now it turns out Angela Merkel, running for re-election, comes out and essentially says this about the U.S. relationship and Germany. The times in which we can rely fully on others, they are somewhat over. This is what I experienced over the last few days, clearly about the meetings with Trump. We Europeans must really take our destiny into our own hands.
Good.
Your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I for one am ecstatic that the Europeans are now having to face this bizarre concept, this unusual concept of actually paying their fair share of their own defense. I think it's about time that we had an American president that said, we love our alliance, which he said, but you can't put it all on the backs of the American taxpayers. We are $20 trillion in debt. This is not 1986. We have an enormous financial burden for the next generation. And I think the fact that Merkel said that is a great sign for Donald Trump. That speech he gave, where he stared down the Europeans and again, this is tough love for our friends. You guys have got to pay your fair share. Merkel's reaction is the typical reaction of an individual who realizes that, oh wait, no longer are the people going to be played for suckers. Oops, we've got to actually pay our fair share. It's about time, especially with a $60+ billion trade surplus they have with the United States. They have a lot of money to spend on defense, and it's about time they start doing it.
And Laura, a big part of that reaction was fear that President Trump and the United States, as a result, may pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement, an international regulatory agreement.
That's going to hurt our economy.
Yeah, that's where his focus is on the economy. Where do you think he comes down this week? A lot of eyes on what he does there
with Paris.
My sense is that the administration will pull out of the agreement, but perhaps for maybe they'll take under consideration new negotiations down the road. But right now, he has to keep his focus on what is going to be a drag on the economy, get rid of it, and move forward with economic renewal. That's what he has to do. And when you look at how this treaty will affect the United States versus Asian countries, India, which will not have to live up to the obligations that we do, it's going to be an albatross around the American economy's neck. He can't let that happen.
Right. Some of the highlights, we're supposed to be writing a $3 billion check to third world countries to incentivize them to do things that are green friendly. Also, we're going to have to get down to the carbon emissions that are going to be dramatically reduced in an unrealistic way, perhaps, than any other country. That's certainly going to affect our economy. But when you have Tillerson, Secretary of State, for staying in, when you have your Secretary of Defense for staying in, when you have Jared Kushner staying in, you still say he's leaving?
He's not going to do it. I mean, it would be a complete betrayal of his base and a betrayal of his message, which was American sovereignty first, the American economy first, America first. Maybe in the future we can renegotiate it in a way that would be actually beneficial to the United States and sensitive to, climate concerns. But this treaty, the way this was negotiated, is a drag on the U.S. economy. I think he should give an address to the nation. I guess he would, to explain this, which I think would be really important. And I actually think it would galvanize more support for him if he laid it out very clearly.
Absolutely.
Again, it's a positive for us. We are reasserting America's role in the world and America's focus on the home front. That is a good thing. It's across the board a good thing.
The agreement was written by Barack Obama and globalists who want to use this to further leverage their agenda.
It's almost as bad as the Iran deal. It's like what the Iran deal was for foreign policy and military. This is for the economy. It's that bad.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about religion, because on Life's Debt, there's an article about how Islam is on track to overtake Christianity as the world's #1 religion. That's in 2050.
Yep. Across the globe. Islam is even looking at making gains in Central America. I was down in Central America last year and talking to a lot of folks in Guatemala about the rise of Islamic converts. from previously Catholic localities in even Central America, South America. Look, they're proselytizing. And I think where there's a retreat of Christianity and even Judaism, there is a space for other ideologies, other political movements. Sometimes it's environmentalism as the new religion. Sometimes it's atheism as the new orthodoxy. But in some regions of the world, we're seeing a real rise and a real spike in Islamic conversion. I think we all have to have a conversation about what that means about our own faith, our own adherence to our own religious tenets. But as we see Christianity retreat in Europe, marriage on the decline, birth rate. People look for absolutes and comfort in absolutes. And I think that will have in some cases, a very, very deleterious effect on what we understand to be the European culture and the American culture.
So what you're seeing across Europe, in some ways, not just the terrorism, but the change in culture, is a preview of things to come.
Some people call it cultural genocide. And we have to have an honest conversation about that. I don't think anyone voted for that.
Laura had a good Tuesday because she joined us. Let's be honest. That's how we started. That's how we end.
We're here to serve.
You are our friend. You're always welcome.
Thanks,
Thank you so much, Laura.